I saw
Wasn't there just an article about kids getting out of homework if they can solve it in 30 seconds, and the one kid did it?
They said you could get out of finals. I saw this morning.
That's
And
right.
this nerd kid, I don't know who he is. He walks up. It's like, this is his moment. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
this is like one of those.
You got the Eminem song playing in the background, Mom Spaghetti.
Right?
The dun 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 dun
It's
dun
like,
dun
he's
dun
been
dun.
waiting for this his whole life. He
Get
comes
one
to the
shot.
front. I got this. Boom. And he did it. Now all the popular kids are super loving this guy because he did it in 30 seconds. Yeah.
Please tell me he dropped it, like he dropped the mic and just walked away.
Oh, I didn't know he did not, because of course he's a nerd and that doesn't work that way. But he should have. I mean, yeah, that is such a movie.
That would have been awesome.
Like that's yeah, we should totally. Someone should make that as a YouTube video. Hi everyone, welcome to the BizDev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I'm David Baxter, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Gary Voigt. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to end the year, I think.
Looking forward to wrapping it up.
Getting Christmassy. We're decorating our tree that we bought last week, and I'm ready to do this, end the year strong. And
speaking of ending the year, we have the Big Pixel virtual Christmas party coming up.
We do. I'm very excited. We're going to be doing we just did our Christmas card that we'll be sending out through the emails. If you're not on our newsletter, cheap plug. But we're doing a Christmas party, which since Big Pixel is a remote company, it's basically a huge Zoom meeting, which it's a lot of fun. So there's all 9 of us all on there, and some people wear really ugly sweaters, and we order lunch from Uber, which is always really interesting because they all arrive at different times. So some people are eating and other people don't. So that's fun. But that's a great time.
Guest appearances by spouses and pets. That's fun.
Spouses and pets, some children involved. So it's a good time. We enjoy that. So I want to jump into the news first. We've got a few. We're going to do a little lightning round today because there's some fun articles this week that we wanted to jump in on.
I got a couple links for you.
First one up, we're going to talk about Apple and Epic. We're going to give an update on that. We've been covering that one. Their big trial for the 1,000-foot view or 30,000-foot view is Epic sued Apple many a moon ago about they wanted to accept payments outside of the Apple Store and not pay the 30%. Over many months, they went to trial. Epic mostly lost, but they won one key thing, which said, well, 2 key things. One that said that you could have a button that would allow you to go outside and use a third-party payment system, which is pretty close to what Epic wanted, core request. And then the other one that they... What's that?
Just to get this straight, that's not to use a third-party payment system. It's also like you can click a button to go to, say, Epic's store instead of the Apple Store.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Payment system, like you could have if you're an app outside of Epic, you could have an app, and I sell my Doodad, my subscription service through PayPal. I could theoretically do that through a button. That's what the court allowed. The other one was that they could not use what's called steering language. Apple right now does not allow you to even mention that you have another way to pay for this. If you do, they will prevent your app from going live. This court shot that down, said you can't do that.
So this affects more than just Epic, though. This actually affects some of the smaller devs out there, dev groups out there that put apps up in the Apple Store. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, this is why we cover this, because this is a big deal for startups. When this happens, the problem is they just put the brakes on it. So the big one that everyone's excited about is the button that takes you out to your own store if you didn't want to pay that 30%. The court just issued a stay, which means that the previous court ruling is being held until the appeals process is done. That was supposed to ramp up in January, which would have been a big deal, but that's now on hold, which kind of stinks. I think in the end, they will lose. I think they will be forced to do this.
So this is just Apple flexing its muscle to kind of delay the
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every month that they keep this, they make bazillion more dollars. So yeah, they're all for it. But the good news is that the steering language part, that is staying true. So I like that. That's going to make our clients' lives easier and everybody else's lives easier, because you can now mention, hey, we have a website, here it is, and you can have on that website a link to your payment system, right? I mean, that's the only way to been able to do that in the past was kind of do sneaky stuff. And Apple was very, very harsh against that, but that's still there. So that's that update. I think that's important. I just wish our justice system. I'm a big fan of it, but when it comes to
big fan of justice,
big fan of
not
justice,
a huge fan of being able to buy justice.
Well, the problem is when you have these big corporate monsters who have basically unlimited money.
Exactly.
Nothing happens for years and years and years because they just appeal it forever.
And it dilutes the system so much that it just seems ineffective.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it ends. Hopefully, the judge in the original case was pretty anti-Apple about these two pieces. Again, if you look at the larger whole court case, Epic lost. I mean, all the big things, like they really wanted all sorts of stuff. They wanted to open up the App Store and get rid of the walled garden. All that failed. But on these 2 points, the judge was pretty strong against them, and I'm hoping they continue to stay strong because for people like our clients and small guys, even medium-sized guys, that 30% is brutal. And
yeah, it's a game changer for them. To segue from Apple,
yeah,
you're going to check this out like a podcast pro here. Speaking about Apple, they're
done.
Also in the news with a new VR headset that they're going to come out with. And speaking of VR, that takes us to the Metaverse from Facebook.
Oh, wow. That's like a double segue.
So I guess Facebook now has an opening for their Metaverse. They're calling it the Horizon Worlds. And
yes.
It's they say it's open to the public, but it's open to people with, I guess,
Can you say it right?
Oculus Quest.
No, I knew you were going to say it wrong. It's the Meta Quest 2. They have dropped Oculus, which I think that's silly, but whatever. I don't want to go off on that tangent. But yeah, I knew because everyone's doing this wrong. It was Oculus Quest 2, and they've dropped Oculus, which I think is a cool brand name. But it's the Meta Quest 2. That is their headset.
Okay, so it looks like they have worlds that they're building, and they're going to open up some of the. It seems like what was that? Not The Sims, was it Second Life, where you have like your own virtual world?
Yes.
And you can kind of create things to go along with that. So it's like a grown-up version of Roblox and Minecraft, but in the Metaverse.
It really does seem like Second Life is coming back around. I mean, was Second Life just ahead of its time or what? Because that's what it looks like except the difference is now we're going to wear headsets while we're in the Second Life.
Yeah.
In both Microsoft's version and Meta's version it looks like Second Life.
Well, you just brought up Microsoft again. The best part is the promotional image that they put up on this article. We'll link to it for the Metaverse. No legs. Your avatars have no legs.
What is it about the Metaverse and no legs? That's now two companies who hate legs.
I think it's just easier to create these worlds and interact without having to animate people walking.
I guess, but I mean, they do in their hands, right? So the hands, you're already tracking hands. Now, I guess it's probably
it's probably because the VR headset can see the hands.
You can see the hands.
You have sensors for it, but people are just kind of standing still as they're doing stuff. So you can't just have the still legs floating through the air. That'd be creepy.
You'd be like the opposite of a Irish dancer, right? Your legs are completely still, but your hands are flopping all over.
The library ghost from Ghostbusters. Just
that's right.
Floating around.
So I guess, and technically, I'm guessing that's a reason, and that makes sense. But it's still super weird. It's like there's got to be a happy medium or something. I mean, I don't know. It's just all these floating torsos. It's just strange.
So did you know more about the Apple AR glasses? You said they've been rumored for years, and I'm assuming they're just the same as like the Oculus or the Meta Quest or whatever.
Well, all of this is rumor based. So the newest article that I saw was that they are now there's a leaker. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but there's a guy who's somewhere in China and he's somehow connected to the Apple supply chain because this dude nails these rumors. Pretty Ming Huo or something.
Yeah, he's always the one putting stuff up for the new iPhones and iPads and all that stuff.
Yeah, he's prolific. And so whenever he speaks, people listen, including financial people. But he is saying now that the AR glasses that have been rumored for a while from Apple will be coming out next year. And the rumor is there are goggles, but they are going to be super high end, super expensive, and they're trying them more as a test balloon. They're not expecting to sell a lot of these yet, but they're like 8K glasses, something crazy, so that the graphics can be really high. And because that's been one of the janky things about any of these headsets is the graphics are not, since it's so close to your face.
They're not on par with like the big screen version.
Well, it's just they're so close that you have to have a lot of pixels because you can see, right?
Yeah.
You're right there. And like a TV, you can have 1080p and it looks amazing because it's across your room. If you put 1080p on your phone, it looks janky. Now you take that again, you put it on your face, you're now 3 inches or 5 inches from the screen. You have to be even higher res. So these new ones are supposed to be 8K. I think maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it's 4K. But again, it's all rumored. But they're hoping that it's going to give the Meta Quest. I did it. The Meta Quest a run for its money, because right now they live basically on their own. And so Apple wants to get in on it.
Yeah, the article says something too about the 3D sensors for hands. So I guess their hand-eye kind of sensor and your ability to move things around and use your hands is supposed to be a lot better
when it comes
the
to
current ARs.
Those goggles and stuff. Not everybody, but the big ones have controllers in your hands, right, that you're holding, and that's how they track your hands. When you're looking at it, you can see your hands in front of your face because you're holding a controller.
Yeah, motion capture.
When you put down the controller, the hand tracking gets really bad. And that's just because that technology that Meta is doing isn't great yet. And Apple, because of Face ID, is really, really good at 3D tracking. And so the rumor is that they've extended the range in which the tracking can happen. So therefore they would be able to track like each individual digit without having a controller. And that would
almost
be
makes
huge,
you wonder if like the whole LiDAR sensor for their cameras on their iPhones was kind of like a prerequisite to see if they can add that into their 3D tracking for this.
Well, what's really cool is all of this tech is basically the Microsoft Kinect from years ago on the Xbox.
Yeah, the creepy webcam that followed you.
But what was really, when that came out, I don't know if I mentioned this at some point in the podcast, when that came out, 8 years ago or something like that on the last Xbox, that was revolutionary. It failed miserably, unfortunately, but
it was a tech breakthrough.
Yeah, it minimized tech that used to be like huge and tens of thousands of dollars, and scientists only had it, and they would do it for research and stuff like that. And then they made it the size of basically half a loaf of bread.
Yeah, I mean, even just like a big remote control, like they got pretty small because they used to come with the Xbox too.
Yeah, because they made 2 versions of it. And then they started putting them on Roombas and all sorts. Like people went crazy with the Kinect because it was so interesting. It was the first time you had really good 3D tracking. And then now the iPhone has basically the same tech inside of its tiny little front camera.
Yeah, center stage.
Well, no, the Face ID uses it, and then center stage is just wider
the same
view.
thing.
Mm-hmm. And so now you're saying, okay, now we're going to take that a step further and basically go back to the Kinect, and now I can track your fingers.
Yeah, they're going to have to look at 2 different objects at the same time, though, in relation to.
No, it's still Kinect.
Interesting to see.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued by it, but the rumor is that those things are going to be like $3,000 glasses. I don't know what that market is, but
don't worry, you'll hear all about it on Twitter from the people bragging that got some. So
they'll make a gold plated edition.
I'm an early adapter because I like to help the tech industry.
That's very nice. Are we all British when we're tech snobs?
No, snobby San Francisco.
Okay.
Look, I'm not an impressionist, okay?
That's good, because you would have been fired.
Yes. Okay, I just wanted to bring up a quote that I saw from Chris Do, who is the CEO and founder of a company called The Future. They started out, I guess it was an ad agency called Blind that turned into kind of like an online education agency, and now they're just like a huge marketing giant. But one of the quotes that I saw from him that kind of gets to me, it says, "The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time to start is now." And that kind of made me think,
good quote,
when it comes to having an idea and wanting to create something in the startup space, do you have a preference or advice for anybody for when is a good time to start realistically, not just, the cliche, start yesterday, start now, but when does it seem like it's a good fit? Or when have you seen in the experience you've had with startups, what situation seems to bode well for their success.
So when it comes to startups and entrepreneurs, I have found they loosely fall into two groups. The first group is the one you see on the TV show like Silicon Valley, where they are young, right? Fresh out of college, 23 years old. They're have very little responsibility in their life yet, generally speaking, because they probably still live with their parents. They just got out of college, or they have a very cheap apartment with 17 roommates. And so they think to themselves, now is the time to start this idea. Or they're on fire from college and being surrounded by that atmosphere that they want to start something. It's a cool time in life.
Yeah, it also seemed to be kind of a trend over the last 10 years where it was, tech guy goes to college, right out of college, startup.
Yeah, and that's a good time. It's a good time to do it because there's very little risk. If you spend a year on an idea that you really like and it fails, then no problem. You're 24 years old and your whole life is ahead of you, and you don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you don't have anything.
Plus, you've probably networked with some other kids in college that are, in the same mindset that can help you out with it.
Yeah, you got this young, excitable vibe that is so cool. It's a really I will be honest, it's the reason I started Big Pixel. Back when I was working for another company, we were working with a startup. They were right out of college, very excited guys about this idea. It was in the hotel industry. And I worked with them at my old company. And when I started Big Pixel, I bought them from my old company.
So you became they became a client of yours that you had to actually pay for.
Correct. Yeah. I promised, okay. Long story short, I promised my old company that when I left to start my new one, that I would never steal a client from them. And so these guys, when they found out that I left, they're like, dude, we want to work with you. We really enjoyed working with you. We're doing a new thingy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, we have to work it out with my old company. And so I ended up buying them from that company.
Okay.
But it was their passion that really it infected me. And I was like, dude, I want to be around this more. And so that's why I started Big Pixel, to focus on startups, because I wanted to be around that. It's a really cool vibe, and I'm a big fan of it. And there's some pros and cons, but we could talk about later. But that's the stereotypical startup life cycle. But I will tell you, the successful ones, the ones that I've seen, and again, I feel like there's a conversation that needs to be had. The startups that I'm talking about are not Facebook, right? The Silicon Valley, San Francisco, raising billions of dollars. That's very, very rare. I know they get all the news, but that's extremely rare.
I think maybe it's just the terminology of startup. Sometimes when people hear startup, they think next big tech giant, where we can refer to startups as just, hey, you want to start a new business and it's going to be, geared more to an online or digital space, not necessarily a huge company. It could just be a retail store or something like that. But
correct,
they're still considered startups.
This could be your pizza shop that you right. want to start, or a coffee shop, or you want to make clothes. I mean,
or find photographers in New York.
Find photographers in New York. We focus on tech because that's our world. But right. I think when people say startup, when people, average Joes, hear the word startup, they're thinking Airbnb, Facebook, Google. All of those were startups at one point, but those their trajectory is so unusual that they're in another class. Most, and I say, I guess the easiest stat to say is 60% of jobs in America are run by small businesses, right? And a small business technically is anything under 55 million in revenue, which to me, that's a pretty big company. But,
yeah, but
that's the government way of looking at it. To me, it's most small businesses started from a dude or a girl who have an idea and they want to run with it. And we love those people. And so I say that because, the startups that come to us are oftentimes, I've got an idea. It's very niche, but I want to make this my job. I want to hire people and build a company around this. I'm not going to get $1 billion for it because the total addressable market is not that big. But I can make $200,000 or $300,000 income, be really successful,
and have it be your own thing.
And this is my thing that I own and run, and that's who we really cater to. So those people typically are older, surprisingly. Back to the original question. I was shocked because I came into this naively 9 years ago, thinking, oh, they're all young kids, right? They're all whippersnappers, right? But as I got through it, most of the guys who come to us, I'd say 50, 60%, 40 plus years old.
My initial reaction to that would just be a guess, and my guess is that they've had, you know, the standard from college to a job, sitting in an office or doing whatever, selling whatever they're selling for some years now, and they're just over it. And they're like, you know what? I think it's time for me to actually do something that I want to do. And at that point, maybe they have enough money saved up, or they have an idea that's been brewing in the back of their head for a while that they've just kind of been poking, and they're like, it's now or never. Let's give it a shot.
So I think where, in my experience, where the two camps are, there's one camp, like I was mentioning before, super young, no risk. Let's go do this. And because, and they have friends and family that they can raise the money, however that works. And then there's the other side. They're 40 plus years old. They typically have a spouse that has a great job. Generally, this is true. This is man or woman. We've had it both ways, that a woman comes to us, their husband is going to support them while they do this, or vice versa. We've had men come to us, say, I'm going to do this for a year, get this idea up and running, and my wife is going to pay all our bills. So that's very common. I don't think I've yet to see a 40-year-old single guy or gal come to me and say, let's do this. I'm trying to rack my brain real quick. I don't think so. I could be wrong. But generally speaking, they have a spouse that is taking care of the bills, and they've talked about it internally in their family. And they have said, all right, honey, I'm giving you 1 year, make it happen, because that's all our savings can afford, or whatever. Right. And so because the risk at that, you're 40 plus years old, most likely you're married, most likely you have children at this point, most likely you have a mortgage at that point. So you have there's a lot of risk. And so you've got to have some way to make sure that that's taken care of. And you're 100% right on the job thing. They're usually tired of their current job, or have had this idea for so long that it's eating them up. Right. That's usually the two that I hear is, I'm tired of my current job and I kind of have this idea I would like to try it, or I still like my job, but I have to do this. It's like I don't have a choice. This has been an idea. I've been batting it around with friends and family, and they're all telling me, shut up, dude. I don't want to hear it anymore. Go do it. Put up or shut up time. And I really like those people, because those people are passionate. That's a fun thing.
I was just going to say, that kind of definitely speaks to the spark of the fire and the passion that you're going to have behind that idea. If it's been burning and burning for years, and you just can't let it go.
Yeah, and those people I find are going to be very, very driven, and that's a very good thing to be. If you don't know what I'm talking about, refer to our episode on the slog. Anyway, so that's generally so the cliche answer is, there is never too late. Another stage, which we might have had a couple of times, but you're retired. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, we have one guy, he sold his business. He did very, very well in business. And he's like, I don't want to retire and do nothing. I've had this idea. I want to do this. I want to pursue it, and I have the funds to do it. So let's go. We've got one client like that, and he is a trip. He's one of my favorite people, because he is money is not a thing to him. He's very successful. So he is not in a hurry, and he is doing this 100% out of passion. And it is very fun.
And that passion is infectious.
Yes.
When you're talking to him and dealing with him, you just cannot help but feel inspired around him.
Absolutely. And it's a really cool thing. Now, that's highly unusual, because most people don't have money that they can spend on their startup, and they don't have to worry about it. They've got to go and get it from friends and family and stuff like that, or savings, and it's a scary thing for them.
So you're saying, basically, in your experience, in Big Pixel's experience, the two camps fall in the young, nothing to lose, and then midlife with a cushion, going to try out the idea.
Yeah, that's generally the two buckets that we've seen. We've had a woman who she was a QA tester for years and years and years, had a good career.
QA is in quality assurance?
Sorry, yeah, she tested software for a living. And her husband, I don't know what he did, it was something high powered. I'm not sure what he did. And she was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I have this idea. I really want to run with it. And so the husband worked with her, and we've had the vice versa. We had a guy who's a teacher. He came to us. He still works with us because he's been successful, but he made himself a runway and said, all right, honey, this is what I'm going to do. And she's like, cool. And they went and ran with it. So, and of course the young guys and gals, we've had many of those. There is no right time to start. There is no wrong time to start. I think that if you have the passion to pursue it, go for it. You're definitely not too old. That's definitely what I want to make sure you hear, because I know there are people listening to this who think, well, I'm 42 years old. I have these responsibilities, so startups are not for me. I would absolutely challenge that.
Plus, when you think about it, if they're 42 years old and they have all that experience and knowledge behind them to help.
Yeah, I think you're probably in a better position than you think. It's kind of, because I will also say that a lot of times the younger ones fizzle out. That's what I was saying, pros and cons. Life is very volatile at 23, 24. Your life is changing. You move, you find your spouse, you know what I'm saying? Your life is just in flux at that age.
And since you're young, everything can seem a bit more catastrophic than maybe to someone older with experience in life.
They can weather those storms and the slog isn't quite so scary. Right. Yeah, I think that's, if you're talking about pros and cons, the young people don't have the risk, but the old people, I say old, they're my age or older, they have the experience and they're not so nervous about bad things because they've been through it. They know there's another side to it. The young people oftentimes flame out, or not even for bad things. Someone offers them a job and they're like, yeah, that's amazing. I'm going to go do that. Or they find a significant other and now they have to get a job, or they have a baby, right? Life just is changing. Very exciting stuff. That's a great time in life, but it might not be the best startup time.
All right, it looks like we got a question this week. This one is coming in from Juan, and his question is choosing the right tech stack for a client. So how and why do you pick what tech stack you use for a client, and how far-reaching are the effects of those decisions? So I guess first we have to explain what a tech stack is.
So a tech stack is what developers refer to as when they talk about the language that they use to build something.
Coding language?
Coding language, yes. So there's typically two: a front-end stack, a back-end stack, and a database stack. I guess if you really want to call that a stack, it's not really. But so for instance, you could use Node on the back end with a Postgres database and React on the front end. That would be the stack of the app. Another common example is you're doing Angular on the front. You could do a .NET C# API on the back and a Microsoft SQL Server database. There's a million options you can do there, and then you can get into acronyms, whatever. There's LAMP stacks and all sorts of stuff. So that's what it means.
So to clarify, the front is what people see, and the back is the magic that's happening behind the scenes.
Generally speaking, yes. It is the front is what people see, the validation, the app itself, and the back is the engine that runs the whole thing. And the database is where you put stuff.
So do you choose different stacks based on different client needs or projects, or do we stick with like a core set that we usually use and then just expand when we need to?
So if sometimes clients bring us a stack, or they have a strong preference. So then we, of course, adopt that preference. Like if you're a corporate client, a lot of times they're a .NET shop. That's just, they use Microsoft technologies. They always have, and they still want to. But if you're coming to us blank, we typically go with what the team prefers, which currently is a React front end and a Node back end. It gets a lot more complicated than that, only because there are lots of flavors of all these things, but I'm going to keep it simple. So we have in our world, we have a React front end, and we are building more and more components that we can reuse between clients when allowed. Sometimes we can't, but that's why we typically. Now, some people say, I need to scale. Okay, well, then let's think about scaling. If you're going for 1 billion users, you're trying to build the next Facebook, then we're going to put you on a stack that is better for that. If you're going for a more enterprisey, low level, I'm building internal kind of thing, then we're going to build a stack that doesn't care about scale as much, right? So some of that also plays into the fact, once you've chosen a stack, though, which is the last part of this question, how far reaching is it? It can't be more far reaching than that. Your app is that stack forever and always until you completely rewrite it. So that's important.
And rewriting, we've talked about this before, but it's harder to go back and rewrite stuff than it is to just adapt newer stuff into existing code stacks.
if you want to change stacks, you have to rewrite it. It's just the
Yeah.
nature. It's like if you were speaking French and suddenly you want to speak German, yeah, you got to go rewrite your paper, right? It's the same thing. So you
Okay.
rarely see people change stacks unless, like, sometimes you have a really old client who comes in with an existing code base that's 6-8 years old and it's rickety and they
It's too old to actually build upon.
well, no, you can always build upon it. I mean, if it's a PHP stack, as much as I'm not a huge fan of PHP, probably going to get shot for that, but it still works. But if you want to adopt some of the newer, fancier stuff, like single page application, that sort of thing, if you're trying to build a PWA, which is like a website that works offline or can work offline, those things are harder to do in older stacks. So in those kind of things, you might have to rewrite, but that's pretty rare. We have yet, I don't think it's ever happened that we adopted a stack and said, you know what, we're going to throw all of this away and start from scratch. That is generally the bang for your buck, which is a huge deal for me and our clients. Bang for your buck on that is really low, because there's a lot of code that works. Even if it's old, it works. Why are we throwing it out? If we need to update it because something's broken in it, fine, we'll update it. But I don't like throwing away code. Code is expensive. So I think
That makes sense.
I think that answers all of Juan's questions.
Do we have a stack that we see that we're using the most, or that is brought to us the most? Like, what are the most common languages right now?
So, well, that's all a matter of opinion. If you look online, Python is always a high thing, but I will say I've never seen a program written in Python. The reason why Python is always ranked really highly is because machine learning is all Python. So when you look at that, it all depends on the lens you're looking at. In our world, when we adopt a stack from somebody, an older app, every time, all but one right now, it's PHP. PHP is a language been around forever. I'm not a big fan of it, but you can write good code. The reason I don't like it, if I'm just being transparent, is it's very easy to write bad code in PHP. You can write good code, and newer versions of PHP, you can write good code easier. But traditionally, you could write some pretty ugly spaghetti code, which means it's really hard to maintain. So when we adopt those, sometimes we get some messes. But if it's an older stack, that's typically what we get is PHP. The newer stuff, we almost always do React. We have some Angular. That's probably too far in the weeds, but we do a survey inside of our company every few years, and we ask what our stack should be. And then any new projects that come from there will be that stack for the next few years, so that we're not chasing our tails, but we have to stay on the edge. I always say that our job is to be the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge, right? If you're outrunning Stack Overflow, you're losing, right? If you are ahead of what I mean by that for non-developers, Stack Overflow is a website where you ask a lot of questions and you can get a lot of help. If you are outpacing the developer community, meaning you are so out on the betas and all of that kind of stuff, you're going to spend 2 times as long than you would if you were in a more mainstream stack. That's when you're talking about. So let me wrap this up in a way that pertains to something besides us as a company. What matters when it comes to the stack is, does it do what you need it to do? Step one. That's a very clear, obvious, and most will, unless you're off in the weeds somewhere. But here's the real kicker. Is it something that's going to be around a long time? Right? There's a lot of languages that come and go, and you have to be careful there when you're choosing your own stack, or a team is coming to your stack. Like if you're a founder and you're not technical, you probably should still ask them what stack they want to use, and then do a little bit of research, because what you don't want to do is pick something that's either so bleeding edge that it might be gone in a year, or it's so old that it's archaic. Does that make sense? And
yes.
you can find that out even as a non-technical person. That's what's really important there.
Okay, so you brought up Microsoft and you brought up old and not going to be around long, so I just want to say Zune.
Oh, man.
I got to call it back.
Dirty shot.
Okay, going to wrap this up on one fun little weird story that I saw.
Okay.
I know a lot of people complain that they cannot game on the new Macs but apparently they can game on the iPhones pretty well enough to where Razer now built a MagSafe cooling fan for the back of iPhones for gamers. Have you seen that?
Anything, I guarantee that it has RGB lighting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because our Razer cannot make. They made a coaster that had RGB lighting. No, that's not a joke.
There's an article in Engadget, and the headline reads, Razer built a MagSafe cooling fan for iPhone gamers. Of course it has RGB lighting.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm a gamer. I've said that before. I play games on my phone a lot, on my iPhone. I am currently playing, I'm looking it up here, Battle Legion, if you guys have ever heard of that one. That's a really great game. But if you are, I don't understand that on the Android side, so I can totally geek out about this is what I'm saying. On the Android side, they make actual gaming phones that have like 12 gigs of RAM, which is as much as a full-on PC. And they have, some of them have these built-in fans and coolers you can add. This has been around for a while.
Do they still work as phones, or are they just mobile gaming devices?
They're phones. They're heavy usually. They have bigger batteries. But here's the thing. I don't know of who's competitive gaming on a phone. Seriously. If you're really big into gaming, you own a laptop. You own a console. You're not playing your Fortnite on your phone. You know what I'm saying? You're not playing PUBG on your phone at a competitive level. Now,
it's kids hiding it in school, playing under their desk.
With the caveat, my son actually, bringing him up a lot this time, he got competitive in Fortnite with his iPad, and which was wild. He had my old iPad Pro, the 12.9, and he had this like claw action with his fingers. I know this is a podcast, so you can't see what I'm doing, but he would do his fingers in like this weird bird claw. And that's how he put his fingers on the buttons, and he would just tap them like this weirdo guy. But he was amazing. I mean,
that just made me think of. I don't know if you ever watched Friends, the TV show. I think everybody's seen that. But when they had I think it was Miss Pac-Man, the stand-up arcade that they had in the apartment, and Chandler was not working at the time, and he was playing Miss Pac-Man all day. And when he stopped, he lifted up his hand, and his hand was stuck in that claw.
Yeah, my son was like that. Yep. It's so I guess I'm eating my own words a little bit. You can play competitively on a mobile device, but who needs a cooler? I don't know. I can't imagine. Because I will say, if you really are playing for a while, my phone will get pretty toasty. But I can't imagine.
It's a $60 phone cooler.
$60 to cool you. No, I don't get it. I really don't.
It is MagSafe, though, for the new MagSafe.
Well, and that's cool. I'm a big fan of everything MagSafe. I think that's a
USB-C charger if you're not using the MagSafe. I'm just going through the article here written by Johnny Fingers.
Now, here is the funny thing. If you go and look at this article, look at the difference. I clicked through the article and went to Razer's website when I wanted to look at this. Look at the difference between the iPhone version and the Android version. The Android version has a clamp around it, so it holds onto your phone because there's no magnet. And it is hardcore, man. It is serious. I get it.
Hey, you need Christmas gifts for anybody who has nephews that have an iPhone, and you got $60 to burn.
Oh my gosh! If I promise you, that nephew opens that phone, he's going to be like, "What is this?" Even I don't care how old the kid is. No way that any kid's going. You know what I need? I need an iPhone cooler.
True.
We're going to wrap it up. So as
we did
always,
have a question. We did have a question,
and I'm going to encourage more people to send us questions. hello@thebigpixel.net. You can also, we're posting these now on YouTube. Finally, we're doing one a day right now until we catch up. But you can put comments there, and we will pay attention there, and you can ask your questions, and we will hopefully be able to answer them. But you can also email hello@thebigpixel.net, and we'll catch you next time.
Spread the word too. We're on all the major podcast entities, so tell a friend. Get us a few more. I think we have like 6 subscribers now, so we're really pushing for that.
Hey, we had 40 viewers last week, so
nice, big time.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
See you.